Something that I'm noticing a lot when playing Fortnite, particularly if I do squads and have voice chat on, is the number of kids. Now, obviously, the definition of what's acceptable for your child to do online will vary from one parent to the next. And so you need to define your own limits and rules and things, obviously, that's appropriate for your kid and your family. But just to make parents aware, I guess, that as we're playing Fortnite and other games, often there's voice chat in the game, and often kids are talking with adults in the game, which hopefully a lot of the time goes really well and is fine. But it's something I think parents should be aware of. Parents should also be aware that when they're talking with someone online, the microphones are picking up a lot of what's going on around them, the house, the family conversations, phone calls, etc. are being picked up, especially if your TV and the video game system is maybe in the living room next to the kitchen or in the kitchen or wherever it happens to be. I wanted to make a video to help parents understand that you can set privacy for who they can chat with voice chat online. So this is on Xbox, but it would work on similar settings on PlayStation, on computer as well. If you go into the settings and into the settings menu, there's a parental controls screen, and I forget what my passcode is. So just to show you, there are parental controls you can enable for not just voice and chat and stuff, but also what they're allowed to see. So obviously this is my own parental controls that my parents aren't setting up for me, but you can do things like set what the rating is that you're approving for your kid for the content that they can see. So this includes like skins in the game, emotes and things like that. So everyone is actually, they can see the least because it's available for everybody, all ages is what they're saying. Everyone 10 plus is obviously a little more violent or fantasy themes, mild language and suggestive themes. And then teen and older is what obviously 13 and up is what they've decided. And you can have that set for your teenagers or if you're an adult. And then whether you want to allow them to play in creative mode, which is basically where other people can create maps and worlds for Fortnite, and then whether your child can play in that world or not is the yes or no, on or off. Allow paid random items is basically not just like, this isn't for skins and emotes and things, but where it's a randomized chance, kind of like gambling basically. So whether you want that on or off. And then filtering mature language, which it says is on always for players under 13. So assuming your Epic account is set legit, this is what allows for direct messaging and party channel messages when you're in game, or if you're just communicating with a friend in the app in Epic Games inside Fortnite, whether mature language is allowed through or if it will be replaced by emojis. And this is the one that I think is important, where requiring the PIN to add Epic friends. Now, I know from my own experience with my kids that eventually they wear you down because they'll just ask you over and over, and it gets annoying when you're trying to make supper or you're trying to get work done and they need their PIN to add their friend who's their cousin, and it's all fine. But I think it's something just to be aware of, that you can enable this where you can require a PIN before they can add a friend online. This would be helpful for scenarios where obviously they're just playing and then random people are asking to add them as friends so they can play again in the next match. This is the one I wanted to highlight the most for this video, is the Epic voice chat permission, where basically you can allow your child to chat with everybody or just their friends, teams, and team members. So like in that particular game, they can chat with their team members and their friends, but not everybody. And then friends only is what I think maybe most people would probably want their at least for me, my under 13-year-old, to not have to be able to chat with random strangers on Epic Games or Fortnite or other platforms, where basically they can only chat with people who are friends that I'm aware of that they're friends with. And of course you could set it to nobody. Just to be clear, I've played lots of Fortnite squad online matches with random people without voice chat at all, and you can still have fun. It's not a requirement to be able to voice chat. It makes a difference, obviously, if you're playing with friends. But even then, if you're at all concerned about this, you could have voice chat on Epic Games set to nobody, and then they could just use a phone and use FaceTime audio or whatever to chat with their friends that they actually know, and be able to chat that way rather than relying on Epic Games and random strangers talking to your kids. And then the same kind of permission settings are for text chatting in the game. So you could have it be like friends, team members, where they can text chat. So at least it's not sending audio to everybody that they're playing with, but they can text and be able to, quickly say like, need help over here or whatever. One safe way to set this up would be either nobody or friends only for voice chat, and then friends, team members, and connections would be text chat. And then you get into time limits and time reports, which you can have basically set up that for your kids' accounts. You can also manage this generally at like the Xbox level, which is probably easier than trying to manage it on a per game level. But maybe there's a scenario where you don't want them to have like an hour of Fortnite a day, let's say, but they're allowed to play a different game as much as they want. And so that's where it would be handy to use the Epic Games time limits. And then it can also send you an email with how much time your kid has spent on Epic Games, which is kind of eye-opening maybe sometimes. And then whether you want your kids to be able to use AI features within the game. So there hasn't been as much lately. There was a Star Wars season where Darth Vader, you could kind of talk to him and give him direction and get funny feedback from him and things like that about what was going on in the game. They haven't had that as much lately, so I don't know if that's going to come back, but that's where you could enable that or not. So that's a very quick run through the parental controls inside of Fortnite. You can enable that on your kid's account when they're logged into Fortnite. You'd set a PIN, like I said, settings, and then over to the settings, the parental controls tab. And then once you've got your PIN, write it down, obviously, and you can go in and make the changes. Feel free to throw any comments down below if you have any questions that I didn't cover or anything like that. Again, I don't want to be scaremongering or fearmongering about what's going on. I just had a game where a 7-year-old was talking to me and another adult and asking to be our friends and connect through the game and stuff, and it just felt a little awkward and weird, and I could hear parents or family in the background of the voice call and on the inside of the game, which felt a little weird and invasive. Even if they know what's going on, it's still kind of awkward to hear a family conversation while you're playing a video game with someone that you don't know and don't know where they are in the world. And so obviously in the hands of kind people, then not a big deal. Kind of laugh it off. The guy that I was playing with this kid kind of laughed it off and just kind of tried to remind him to play the game and not talk about what was going on in his real world too much with strangers on the internet, but just to be made aware of what could happen, I guess, if it fell into the wrong hands or they got matched up with someone that wasn't so kind. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm Chris. This is Gaming with a Lemon.